How about this one? Bryce Young versus Michael Penix Jr. How about that one?
There we go. There we go.
Nice.
Who's older between those two, by the way?
I had my top 5 list last week on the last day of spring, the wildest stories of the spring. And number one was Michael Penix being drafted where he was. And that also included Shohei Ohtani's interpreter going rogue and Scotty Scheffler being arrested on the second day of the PGA Championship, just trying to gain access to the club. I still can't believe it, man. And I'm just wondering what you're hearing now, just 2 months later. Daniel, what are you hearing about this?
No, I mean, everything that I've, heard is just that, Kirk's going to be the guy, and they expect him to be the guy really for the next 2 years. And that they're kind of more playing the long game with Penix, which was, a lot of the pushback with the pick. It had nothing to do with Penix's talent. We all saw it, and you saw what he did last year at UW and how gifted he is as a thrower. And we've said he was ready to play. So that wasn't even almost more of the pushback than, okay, you just paid all this money to Kirk literally just mere months ago, and now you're jumping back into the quarterback pool with Penix. It was almost more so. It makes sense if this guy was 20 years old and you needed a couple years. If that would have been, J.J. McCarthy, you could have framed it differently. But the fact that we viewed Penix as kind of ready to go, ready to get out in the field, and now we're talking about that timeline being pushed back a couple years, I think that's where the shock factor came in.
I set the line at 2.5. Daniel Jeremiah, number of rookie quarterbacks starting in week 1. You take the over or the under. Line 2.5. Daniel Jeremiah.
Well, I know the 2, so picks 1 and 2 will be out there.
That's where I set the line. Where it is, Daniel.
That's why you're smart. That's why you're smart. I think Sam Darnold holds off JJ.
Okay.
At least for a while there. Mm-hmm. I think Cousins is ready to go, and he holds off Penix. I'll say that Bo Nix captures that job. So I'm gonna say the over the 2.5.
So Bo Nix captures the job.
Yeah.
And Drake May plays when?
I think we'll see Drake May middle of the season. I could see that 6 to 8 weeks of him getting a chance to absorb and learn and watch, and then eventually he'll get out there. What's so funny about the off-season stuff and the reports is that it's like whatever you do in the first practice, it's like everybody latches on to that as the focus and the narrative, and then you that's the scream, right?
Yes.
So the scream is he struggled in 7-on-7 in the first practice, and then you got to read in the notes in the bottom of the practice reports once you get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, he was 7 for 7, 3 touchdowns. It's like that's the whisper. But when you and I'm sure Brockman's reading this stuff every day. Like when you're following this, it's like I think he got better, but it's not being, said with their chest, so to speak.
Well, I mean, you look at the Patriots' schedule, and
not great.
The start is brutal.
Hard.
So it would make sense to not throw Drake May in the deep end at Cincinnati, home for Mike McDonald's Seahawks, at the Jets on a short week Thursday night, at the 49ers, home for the Dolphins and Texans. They're in London against Jacksonville in Wembley, which technically is Jacksonville's home away from home for the Jets again. And then there's a week 9 game at Tennessee. It's just like, where do you throw them in? Like when do you do that?
Right after the bye.
Well, I mean, they're bye, if you will, based on the general sense of things halfway through the season. So at some point you got to throw them in, right? One would think.
You don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's going to play this year. He's going to start games this year. It's just kind of where that falls. And a lot of times we sit here in the offseason and try and figure out, is it before the bye? Do you want him to go, play a game or two, then get a chance to use the bye to kind of learn and figure out what you like, what you don't like, where you need to improve, or do you want to wait till you get to the bye? Then he goes, at the end of the day, the probably, most likely scenario is it's whenever the guy in front of him gets hurt. Whenever Jacoby Brissett's going to miss a start, and then we'll see what he does filling in, if he earns himself the job at that point in time. Usually, there's a good chance that's the way that thing goes down.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.